Alright guys, Gemini, back with another video, and today's going to be a little bit of a different video. I'm going to give you guys the origin of where pro wrestling on media started, and it's going to kind of blow your socks off. You know, I've studied this stuff extensively, and I think you're going to be surprised. I mean, obviously, you know, today you have the DVD, but I mean, back, 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't DVDs, and so we're going to get into it here in just a second. So let's take a look at, first off, where this started. It didn't start off on a DVD player or a Blu-ray player or even a VCR with a VHS tape. So let me show you where it started. Let's take a look. Okay, so in 1976, the Japanese brought to the United States a machine called the Betamax. And what you're looking at right here is actually a Betamax tape. So let's look at the Betamax player. So in 1976, if you wanted to record stuff off of TV and have a tape of it, this is the equipment that you had to go through with a Betamax. So let's explain it a little bit more here in just a second. Okay, so you guys saw that monstrosity known as the Betamax. So think about it. You're right in the range, 1976, 77, 78, 79, 80, and there's no VCR yet. So that's how you did it back in the late 70s. When the VHS tape, when the first wrestling tape started coming out, was up in the AWA, and the only way you could purchase this was you had to be actually at an AWA show up in Minnesota, Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, somewhere in that area, and you actually had to go to their live events, and the AWA superstars would produce their own versions of the Betamax tapes. For instance, there was an All-Star Wrestling tape, Betamax, and there was the Sergeant Slaughter Betamax. In fact, let's take a look at the Sergeant Slaughter tape. And this was the very first pro wrestling tapes that were ever done on media. So let's look at that Sergeant Slaughter Betamax tape if you don't believe me. Check it out. Here you go. The 1981 Betamax All-Star Wrestling with Sergeant Slaughter. I actually had a chance to buy this tape at one time, but I didn't have a Betamax player. This was probably like late 90s when I saw this tape in a video store and the guy was closing. I could have actually owned this tape at one time, but this is the very first wrestling video that came out on the Betamax. Talk about historic. I mean, AWA, like I was saying, they did Sergeant Slaughter, Road Warriors, Greatest Tag Teams, Greatest AWA Championships, Larry Zbyszko. I mean, this was all on Betamax. I mean, AWA was the ones that started pro wrestling on media. So anyways, let's take a look at the next innovation, of course, the VCR. And that changed it all for a lot of wrestling fans, including myself. Okay, so the VCR hit its boom in about 1983. The Japanese brought this to the United States in about 1983. And this revolutionized the way we watched pro wrestling from 93 all the way, or 83 all the way up till about 1999. So let's discuss how the WWF got involved in this. Okay, so take it to the time frame, about 81, 82, 83. The VCR came to the United States, and this revolutionized the Beta player. The Beta player was big and bulky and complicated, and it wasn't a real big success. So VCR came in and it revolutionized the industry for about the next 20 years. And everybody had a VCR between 83 and 99. There was no DVD player yet. So WWF, NWA got involved in this. Not just the AWA. AWA was the originators with their Betamax tapes at their live events, which were smart. AWA started the merchandising, the t-shirts, the wrestlers wearing t-shirts, the Betamax tapes. I mean, AWA was smart. And so WWF, gets involved in this, and then they produced the first Coliseum video. And then, of course, they're like, well, we're going to get involved and bring our WrestleManias out, and NWA gets involved. I'm going to show you guys something. Moving on to about, say, 88, 89, somewhere around there. VHS tapes at the time were still expensive to get. They weren't exactly cheap at the time, and I'll prove it to you guys here in just a second. Here, give me 1 second, I'll find something for you. Okay, for instance, I'm going to show you my WrestleMania 3 video cassette. If you look in the bottom corner of it, 3-hour cassette for $39.95. And if you actually have the WrestleMania 4 video, it was actually $59.95. Back in these days, access to the VHS tape for Pro Wrestling Media, extremely difficult to acquire. You pretty much had to subscribe to the WWF magazine, and you pretty much had to send them a check for, $40 for the WrestleMania 3, or you did what the rest of the world did, and you just went to the VHS only videotape rental store and you rented it. Now, what a lot of people did, because they obviously couldn't afford the tape, a lot of people would take a piece of masking tape, put it right here, and you would put a piece of masking tape over the side of the tape. You would have another VCR, and then you were able to record it. This little tab right here controlled what you could record. So if you covered the tab, you could record it to another VCR. So if you had 2 VCRs, you can make your own copy and then return this to the rental store. And that's what a lot of people did. So if you notice, the little tab here has already been broken off because somebody probably had pre-recorded WrestleMania 3. Now if you look through your old VHS tapes that have been rented, most of them have the tab broken on them because most people just burned a copy from the VHS rental store. Everybody did that because back then access to VHS tapes on Pro Wrestling Media almost impossible to get, so people just burned their own copy. Remember the masking tape trick on the VHS side of the tape. Obviously, that worked till about 99, and then of course, the DVDs, took over the world. So let's take a look at the first WWE DVD and how that kind of changed things. Okay, so take a look at, hell yeah, this is the second DVD ever released for WWF, 1002. Incredible where this came from. If you watch the technology on this, it just wasn't quite there yet. WWF was resistant to making, WWE was resistant to making all their stuff DVDs. In fact, they ran their VHS tapes through like 2003, 2004. They didn't produce everything on DVD till 2003, 2004, something like that. And then they got away from the VHS tape. Everybody who had a VCR at first was resistant to the DVD player when they realized how much more convenient and how much smaller it was to just have a small disc. But everyone kind of went, whoa, what is that? Does that play on the computer? Does that play on the computer? I want to watch it on TV. How does the small disc? That looks like a computer disc. They got smart. And that kind of revolutionized the pro wrestling DVD industry. Think about it. We went from smoky arenas up in Minnesota, Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, smoky arenas up in the Midwest that were hawking big giant Betamax tapes to slick designs that you see today. And it's blown up. Think about the origins. If 35 years ago, if you wanted to see pro wrestling on videotape, you had to go up to, the origins. You had to go up to Minnesota, with Vern Gagne and Greg Gagne and get a Betamax tape. And we've come to this. It's a pretty incredible transition to go from the big bulky tapes, Rowdy Piper, to slick, modern, now age DVDs. Everything's on DVD now, slowly being transitioned out by the Blu-ray. But man, pro wrestling on media has come a long, long ways. A lot of us just keep our VHS tapes as treasures, but think about it, man. If you got a Betamax tape and you got your VHS tape, those things are treasures because you're looking at not just pro wrestling media history, you're looking at media history altogether to see where we've came from and where we are to this day. So, I just wanted to give you guys a little history lesson on pro wrestling media. It's come a long ways. It's been revolutionized, but I still am a mark for the old tapes and the Betamax. I think that stuff is cool, and I love where everything has come in 2014. Well, 2015 now, but everything is just easier, it's simpler. You walk into Walmart, you don't have to go to a live event up in Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Minneapolis. You don't have to go to a live smoky arena to get the tape. It's right in front of you. WWF revolutionized and blew it up back in the day. But we've come a long, long ways, guys. So I'm Gemini. I hope you guys enjoyed the hell out of this. Peace out.